Good day, poker peeps. This is Sky with Smart Poker Study. And in this video, I'm going to help you analyze your statistics and your win rates to give you a direction of study to improve your game. Now, what we see on the screen in front of us, statistics and win rates, these are numbers measured by my student Victor. When he sent me these numbers, he sent this email as well. He said in the email, I played a few hands since you last took a look at my stats and gave me your thoughts. I think I put those thoughts into my game and changed some things, but I am not sure how I can analyze the results myself. I sent you an update of my stats, which you can see over here on the right from Victor. Now, the key thing that I clued into in his email was, I am not sure how I can analyze the results for myself. And instead of me just in this instance with Victor, instead of me just going through noticing what he needs to work on and tell him what to work on, I instead took this opportunity to teach him how to analyze his own numbers. Now, just before we go into how you can analyze your own numbers, let's just go over this real quick. The first time he sent me his numbers, 1,059 hands, and these are all of his results right here. VPIP, PFR, down to C-bet flop, C-bet turn, all the statistics. Same thing with the win rates. These are his positional win rates, not with VPIPing, not open raising, just in the button. At first, he had negative 4.6 big blinds per 100 hands. The second time measuring his stats and win rates, 75.6, right? And speaking of the second time, it was a little bit over a month since he had joined the Forge. He played 3,800 hands just about, had some pretty good results, and then we can see how different numbers changed from initial pre-Forge numbers to being in the Forge for a little bit over a month here. So this is what I taught Victor, and I want to teach you in this video. The only way to learn to analyze your stats and win rates is to just do it. You have to put the reps in. Train yourself to look at these numbers to gauge what the differences mean and what they say about your style of play. So step one is to always record your stats and win rates on a regular basis. Every 3,000 to 5,000 hands, I recommend. The second step is analyze the results. So when you're looking at different numbers, you want to ask yourself questions based on these numbers. Some questions like, where are you exploitable? If my opponent saw these numbers, if he saw this number, what could he do about that? That's going to clue you in on your tendencies, but also areas where you probably need to focus some of your learning to improve your strategy so you're not as exploitable. You want to ask yourself, what win rates are big and red? Initially, whoa, look it. He was red when he's calling two bets in all the late positions right here. Big time red when calling rivers, right? Like these are obvious areas that he needs to focus on. Also, what stats correlate to those win rates? We see all these big losing numbers when calling two bets. Well, a stat that correlates to that is calling two bets pre-flop, right? Always ask yourself, what can I do about it? This number is ugly in red whenever I'm calling two bets pre-flop. What can I do about it? How can I potentially improve this win rate here? And then once you spend time analyzing, asking yourself questions, answering those questions, it's going to give you an area or it'll let you know what areas to work on to improve your skills, where you need to study, where you need to practice as well. So instead of sending Victor just my insights on his changing numbers from the first session to the second session, I sent Victor 4 questions to help him analyze his numbers. Now, here are the 4 questions. What I would like you to do right now is read each of these questions. Imagine these are your numbers. You turned these numbers into me, and I asked you these questions right here. Pause the video. Read all 4 questions, but answer them for yourself as if these are your numbers. This is going to be great practice in analyzing statistics and win rates. So take a few moments, pause the video, and do that for yourself. All right, so I'm assuming you spent some critical thought or did some critical thought into these numbers to answer the various questions. Let's go over them right now. So first off, your pre-flop numbers changed a lot. Specifically, and I highlighted them in blue, VPIP, PFR, 2-bet, then call 3-bet, call pre-flop 2-bet, and 3-bet. What do these changes say about your new style of play? Well, to me, these obviously say that he's become a more tight and also a more aggressive player. He went from 19-12 to 17-16. tight aggressive. Folding to 3-bets 28, now 52% of the time. Look what happened. Positive 600 big blinds when calling a 3-bet. Now positive 2,000. Wow, folding more, but more profitable. Things are looking pretty good here for him, right? His call 2-bet went from 12 to 3.5, and 3-bet went from 6.4 to 9.4. Way more aggressive and a much more winning player due to these changes. He's becoming a more tight aggressive player. Question number 2. You're c-betting more on the flop, but less on the turn. You can see how it went from 58 to 66, 58 to 44, a decrease there from flop to turn. What does this say about your tendencies? Well, this says that he is bluffing on the flop more. Oh, when I sent him these questions, he replied back with his answer. So this is the kind of stuff that he came up with. He c-bet bluffing a bit more, so his win rate decreased a little bit. So maybe he needs to work on c-bet bluffing skills, finding the right boards to bluff on, the right opponents, the right sizing, all that kind of stuff. His c-bet on the turn decreased, so he's a little bit more turn honest. Because of that, maybe his opponents realize he's betting for value on turns, so they're folding, so he's not as profitable. Potentially not as profitable, right? But those are some insights just based on numbers without reviewing any hands. Next question. You're folding less on flops versus c-bets. You could see 66 to 51.5. But your win rate has increased significantly from negative 14 to 1,200 positive. Holy cow. Why is that? Because you would kind of imagine, with not thinking about not knowing anything else, if somebody was folding a ton but folding less often now, their win rate would probably decrease, maybe stay the same, but probably decrease because they're continuing with weaker hands. But here's the thing, and here's what Victor picked up on. His fold decreased versus c-bets, but look what's happening up here. He is calling less pre-flop, which gives him stronger ranges when he calls, so he's better able to defend versus c-bets. That's why he's folding less. He has those stronger hands. No more 10-7 suited or Jack-4 suited when he's calling, right? Because he has stronger hands, broadways, pocket pairs, suited connector, suited aces, that kind of stuff, he's better able to defend. He's defending more often and making loads of chips when doing so. Lastly, the fourth question, your call or your 2-bet and then call 3-bet win rate increased dramatically. Why is that? And so that was this number right here, which we kind of pointed to earlier, from positive 600 to positive 2,000. Well, I think, and he made the same conclusion, he's folding way more often, from 28 to 52, almost twice as often, which means now that he has stronger ranges when he sees the flop. So once again, just like correlating down here, right? He's better able to defend versus c-bets, maybe check raise for value, check call 3 streets for value versus a loose aggressive player. Whatever the case is, right? But this increase in folds led to a big increase in profitability. Now, when I sent these 4 questions to Victor, I asked him for 3 additional insights of his own, or questions to ask of his own. Let's take a look at those. When Victor emailed me back, and this was great, I love what he did here. He asked these 3 questions. His first question was, my call 2-bet preflop win rate increased from negative 100 to positive 100. Why is that? Isn't that amazing? When he's calling preflop, every call that he used to make, he used to lose about 1 big blind on average per call. Now he makes 1 big blind. That's a 2 big blind per hand swing in his win rate. And he asked, why is that? Well, we kind of already discussed it before. He's calling way less often, which means he has stronger hands on the flop. So that's a really good thing right here. My call turn c-bet win rate decreased dramatically. Why is that? So as you can see right here, it decreased from 100 to negative 3,000. But look at this, the related statistic. Fold to turn c-bet, it actually increased. He folded more. Now, when he asked this question, he actually couldn't figure out the answer. He didn't know what was going on. And I don't know either. Truthfully, just from looking at these stats, I don't know. When you fold more often, you would expect losses to decrease. So maybe this would be a little bit more positive. Positive 100, positive 200, because he's folding some of his weaker hands. But that's not the case. So what I told him, and sometimes your stats and your win rates don't give you the whole story. Sometimes what you have to do is you have to go through and filter for that exact situation. Call, turn, c-bet, and review his losing hands. Because this was only about 4,000 hands, 2, 3, maybe 4 big losing hands where he called a turn c-bet, that could be really disproportionately negatively affecting this win rate. So while stats and win rates clue you into where your leaks are, sometimes you got to go through and do the dirty work, actually review hands to figure out what exactly is going on. Now, the last question he asked, my win rate in the cutoff decreased a lot. Look at that, from 96 to +6. Actually, it's worse in every position. The win rate is worse in every position besides the big blind. That's the only one that improved. You can see the button got better as well. Wait a second. I think maybe he made a mistake in this question, or maybe I did when I typed it in right here. Why is that? So basically, the cutoff being worse than before. Why is that? It could be related to this. Maybe he had 2 really big losing hands, 1 or 2 big losing hands where he called a turn c-bet and he was in the cutoff. Those big losses affected this one, potentially. But once again, what he has to do is now, instead of just call, turn, c-bet, filter for just hands in the cutoff. Take a look at his biggest losing hands, maybe some of his biggest winning hands, and actually, a really good exercise is take a look at the cutoff, see how many hands you won and how many hands you lost. Maybe he has a weakness for the cutoff because it's right before the button. Maybe he's just making bad plays, trying to utilize his position against his opponents, but he's just doing it incorrectly. So those are just suppositions on my part. I have no idea, but he can find out by going into his database and actually looking at hands to figure out what's going on there. Now, a couple other questions that I love to ask my students, or that I ask myself of my statistics when I review this kind of stuff. I ask myself, what can my opponents do to exploit this? So if you look at your own stats right now, and if your 2-bet and then fold to 3-bet is only 28%, what can your opponents do to exploit that? Holy cow. You hardly ever fold, so they can 3-bet you really big with their best hands because you're not folding. And why would I bluff this guy who only folds 28%? So the 3-bets that you face, you're not folding, but they're not going to be bluffing that often. Boom, big exploit against you right there. So now that you answer the question, what can my opponents do? Now you got to figure out, hey, what can I do to fix this? What can I do to make myself less exploitable? Well, the first answer, like Victor came up with, is fold more often, right? Now, another question that's great is, what am I doing wrong that's leading to this? If we see this call 2-bet as a total is -100, but it's also bad in all these later positions where you should be entering the pot with position against the open raiser, wow, you're definitely doing something wrong. What am I doing wrong that's leading this? And he can figure that out. And he obviously figured that out. He's calling. He was calling 12%, 14 and 11% in the cutoff. Just way too often, especially if he doesn't know yet how to utilize his position against his opponents, right? So these are great additional questions for you. All right. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, take this opportunity to do these 3 steps for yourself. Ask yourself questions, answer those questions, and allow those answers to guide you in a direction of study. And of course, practice the things that you study. Alrighty, I'll see you in the next one.